All right, so welcome back to day number 6 of the 100 Days to Code in Nautobot. We're actually going to go over job hooks and job button, which is day 12 and day 14. I'm skipping over a couple days because they involve logging into devices, and I don't really have a lab set up, so I'll kind of wait on that until more of these days require that. So job button is, you can trigger Nautobot jobs directly from the UI. That way the user doesn't have to go into that different page and then try to find jobs because sometimes you can have a lot of jobs to pick one. So if you can have something that can get triggered directly from a page, it's just easier for the user. And job hooks is events that you can trigger based on object changes. So if something gets created, updated, or deleted, you can have it trigger a specific job. So let's quickly go into a demo just to showcase this. So I have this device 3 and I'd have device 4. So my job currently is tied to decommission status and to this end of life tag. So every time I update the status of decommission, I add this tag. If this goes into active, it removes that tag. So if I go into edit and I do not do anything, it's going to keep it the same, right? That makes sense. If I go and change this to active status, it goes down, tag is removed. If I bring it back into decommission, the tag gets added. And if we go into the job results, we'll see the two last results here. And you'll see here, device is active, no action needed. Device already has a tag end of life. Device 3 is now active, removing end of life. See? Then we go into the other one. Device is decommissioning, checking tags. Tag is not found, adding tag. Tag end of life added to device 3. So that's essentially what the job hook does. And in the UI, you have to configure it in the job hook menu under jobs. And you go into, I'll go into the edit field. And so you name the hook, in my case, device tagger. You put the content of where the hook needs to be invoked because it gets called um, as a changed object. And I'll show the code in a little bit. So you dictate, okay, what object you want for this hook to be triggered on. So if you do device, that's the device object. You can have it on multiple, um, but I actually always try to keep it one of like as smaller as you can because you can have a lot of hooks going depending on your environment. And then here I have the job that gets triggered when this gets called. In my case, updates and create events is what triggers this job hook. And then we'll go over the code in a little bit. Finally, we've got the actual location job button. So in this case, I can go something into Austin. And now I have this little button down here that says device validation check. If I click on this device validation check, it will actually do a job in queue button. Click here for results. And technically, this is the job that gets ran when I click that button. In my case, I'm actually using my hook, or at least my button, to call and trigger the data quality job that I did the day before. So now if I click on that link, I can see that I ran it on Austin and it did all 3 checks and it does it based on the actual location that I'm choosing. So I no longer have to go in here, choose a location. If I'm in one of these locations like ELP, device check, and I run it, it ran it. Here you go. I click on it. ELP. There's no devices, right? Something that I need to do, and this is besides this video, is if there's 0 devices in the location, don't even spit out a document, right? Like just error, like return the job. But this is nothing to do with the button. This just I didn't add that to the job when I was first creating it. But this is something that you can do. And the reason why we didn't think about this when we created this job is this job was designed to be ran through the UI, and the UI in the form field already filtered locations that only have devices. So ELP actually wouldn't even appear. If I click here, it's Austin DFW. But if you make it into a button, now it's kind of takes whatever location it has. There's ways to go about that, but high level, just pretend it doesn't. So that is kind of what a job hook and a job button does. You can add that button in the job section for job buttons. And same thing like the we did for the hook. You have the object type, where do you want this to go, the name of it, the job that gets invoked. In my case, that's the button enabled. This is just the name of what you wanted to say in the button. In my case, it's device validation check. But you can have it say, you can go into the actual object, which is DFW. So you can say um, object, let's see if this works, object name location uh, device check. I'll do that. And then um, that is it. Oh, button class. Button class is also good. So button class default is the one that's kind of clear. You got primary, which is a blue, none, red, orange, info, which is aqua. So I'll push that one for aqua, and I'll go to Austin again. You can see the button change now. Now it's a little, it's no longer like invisible. And as you can see now, it says Austin device check, right? Because I tapped into the object and I just put the name here. So that's something that you can use to kind of make this better. So with that being said, let's actually go into the code and take a look at this. All right. So this is the code that I wrote for the actual button. I've done it sometimes where the actual, I have the same logic that I'm going to be doing in both the data quality job and the hook and the button. If they all do the same thing, some such as like the tags, keeping things in check, or data you kind of always wanted to be synced. There's been times where I create like a mixin and then I add all of the logic in the mixin and then I pass those mixin functions or methods to the actual job and then to the job button and then to the job hook so that I can just work on one thing and then they all inherit it versus kind of splitting up the logic. But this is a simple way that you can do something like this where you have the job and the data here is kind of, creating files and doing all these things. So you kind of want to just make it quick and dirty. um, Job button. This comes from the actual jobs folder. And so you just inherit it into your class. I usually call it the same as the button, same as the job itself, and I just put job button on it. Meta field is the exact same thing, and I just add the receive job button. That is pretty much all you do. You can have run method as well. But like it says here, you shouldn't overwrite that. It's just receive job button. And for this particular thing, I just do job model and I go look for my job, which is this top one. I get it and I pass in the job keyword arguments, which is the object.pk. The object itself is going to be the location. So if I'm in Austin, that is the object that gets passed down here. Um, Technically, I could put location here because I know that it's going to be a location, but object.pk, which is ID, I pass the ID here to the object to check, and then I'm passing these myself, true, true, true on all the checks. And then finally do job results in queue job, and I pass in the job model, the user, which is me, um, job keyword arguments, and then I finally do the logging of it, and I just pass the job results, which is what takes you to the actual job itself that ran. This is technically a job, but this is what actually does all the logic, the job that we did the day before. And then finally for the tag, this one's a little bit, I made it a little bit more complex than it needs to be, but high level, you need a receive job hook, and you'll have change, action, and change the object. If you go into this one, Not sure why that didn't open how I wanted it. That is totally fine. Here we go. So change is object change, and it comes from this particular model. Action is it performed, which is create, update, or delete, and then change object is a model instance of what, and the specific what you define in the UI as well. In our case, we're saying, hey, if the action is not update or create, and this could have easily said if it's not delete because there's only three options, but bear with me here. And the instance is not a device. This is just for the sake of me being careful. Technically, if you do it in the UI, um, this won't get triggered by it, but this is a way just to kind of safeguard it. I just said not created, update, delete, exiting, right? Nothing happened. Thankfully, I don't even have to log this. I can just not do anything and just do that. Then finally, I do change log, put it right here, object. And then step one is I check device status is decommissioning. So I created this function, check status, just basically check, am I decommissioning or am I inactive? If I'm in active, I uh, turn true this flag that I have that says, hey, active device found, else I don't. And then finally, after that, I do step number two, which is I figure out the end of life tag. So first I do tag objects.get to get the tag object. And then I say, hey, if I'm an active device myself, then call that is active. Else, call that is decommissioning. And essentially the logic difference here is an active. I remove the tag, and if decommissioning, I add the tag. And that's it for the actual code. But that's a quick, brief intro into tags, how you create it, what you can do, and basically how you can kind of handle some of these things that you kind of always want them to stay synced up, such as like statuses with tags or a particular device from a location is always supposed to have something so that you can always trigger stuff. Something that we would do is if you made a device go into decommissioned, like let's say this device, not decommissioning, you would have to create a whole other status called decommissioned. If you put in decommissioned, it would trigger this device to get rid of, you know, the primary IPv4, IPv6, get rid of any of the modules in here, uninstall them, uninstall any of the interfaces that it has, all the cables, so that it's completely isolated. Maybe even get rid of the tenants, right? If get rid of the tenants so that you know that it's completely decommissioned. And then finally, you can have a final step that says removed or out of network. And then finally, you can remove it from the actual rack so that it's no, you have it here for historical purposes, just for the sake of changelog records. But it will not be taking any actual data, right? Like you're not going to get racks for it. You're not going to get interfaces, or it's not taking over IPv4 space or anything like that. So that's a quick demo on job hook and job button. Hope you enjoyed it.